Really wanted an amazing hairstylist who has transitioned into a spiritual realm and work. And I just wanted to, before we dive in, I want to just give a little gentle trigger warning to everybody listening to today's episode. We're going to be talking about deeper healing work. We're going to be talking, which includes, like child wounds, shadow work, going to therapy. This may bring up some emotions, memories, or discomfort. So if you need to pause or take care of yourself, please do so. This is not medical advice. This is just like an honest conversation between both of us because we both have done, our own share of work, healing, and growth. And we really wanted to talk today about beyond the aesthetic version of wellness and healing that social media portrays, right? And just remember to come back to yourself. And we're here to create like a mindful space. And with that, let me introduce you, amazing Gina Devine. Yay. So we met back in 2018, okay?
Oh my
Do you
God.
believe that?
No.
So I went to a class. Lisa loves balayage class, okay? And Gina is a hair paint specialist, and she was on stage, she was teaching, and I was able to connect with her. And it has just been a privilege to be able to work alongside with her. She has helped me with so many things, which we'll talk about today, but also to see her growth this past years and her evolution has just been beautiful. Gina is an intuitive mentor, tarot reader, artist, writer, and educator, and she's based out of New Jersey. She offers soulful guidance that blends spiritual insight with creative exploration. So true. You are so that, love. You are so that. So Gina's journey into tarot deepened during a pivotal time of personal healing, leading her to embrace divination as a means of self-discovery and empowerment. And she is also the creator of the forthcoming soul centric oracle deck, further expanding her offerings in the realm of spiritual artistry. So, with that, Gina, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Going back down memory lane, I'm like, oh my God, my Celeste. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here. I know it's so crazy. I actually have a picture of us, which I'm gonna throw in the video here, okay? And I just love it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so little. Like I was barely like 2 years into hair.
But it was so amazing. Like meeting you, I'm telling you, that's why I say there's no mistakes. Like there's no eras that I regret. Like sometimes when people hear, oh, you left hair, it must have been a terrible experience. No, like I knew for a very long time that I needed to transition out, but there's nothing from that time period that I would take back. And so, like meeting you and meeting everyone and going through this experience and having I'm going to just put in a big, a blaring sign, the opportunity to experience those things. I'm still very grateful for it. Just crazy the way things have gone down.
I know it has been beautiful and I have just loved it. And Gina, she is like a rock star, okay? She's amazing at social media. She's just amazing human being and just talented all the way around and just the kindest human I've ever met in the industry. So thank you. Thank you for everything that you do. I've had somebody come in. We've talked about Reiki, healing and energy and how to incorporate that into your business. But I really wanted to first start off, Gina, for you sharing because I know so many beauty pros and even like just regular people like just in the world have really struggled with transitioning.
Mm-hmm.
And you have done such a beautiful job in your transition in your journey. But as we're talking about healing work, I would love to also like for you to enlighten us with the reality and the perspective of what it really has been like behind the scenes.
Oh my gosh. I definitely would love to give you this perspective because I think that there is a misconception that it's easy, or not even that it's easy, that there's like a 1, 2, 3 step that
Yeah.
happens and takes place, or a definitive day when you just decide that you're done. Um, Most of the transition was incredibly messy. Um, it had a lot to do with my inclination to want to run away from everything all the time when it got heavy or difficult. I just want to put in a note here that a portion of the reason why I fully transitioned out of doing hair had to do with my health. I could no longer use color or lightener, and I was dealing with a lot of lung issues as a result of being overexposed to product. Now, that also has a lot to do with the fact that I literally grew up in this industry. I've been doing hair my entire life. I mean, from the time I was 14 years old, I was working in hair salons. So, and my mother was a hairdresser, is a hairdresser to this day. And so like she literally worked until 9 months pregnant with me behind the chair. And so, and I spent most of my childhood in salons, because childcare wasn't really that accessible. So, I think that there was a lot of maybe overexposure to chemical throughout my entire life. With that being said, hair was like second nature for me. It was a way for me to sort of very quickly and easily understand how to translate things onto people's heads, and like it wasn't hard for me to discover and to do hair. So that's something that sometimes people don't like to hear. I never found it to be difficult to do. Hair was actually something that was like, as if someone grows up in a restaurant and they just know how to make the best food, like I'm that with hair. So it wasn't strange for me to get bored of it, to be honest, because I think that when you have access to something your whole life, you get a little ungrateful, you get a little, it gets monotonous, it gets whatever. But leaving hair was actually a little stunning and stressful because, again, like it had to do with the fact that I had to take into serious consideration the fact that I couldn't ignore my health anymore. So, and of course, the pandemic is what really drove me out from behind the chair, because it was the day we shut down, like March 14th, 2020. And I was fully booked that day. I had like multiple hair paintings back to back. Like it was, it was, I didn't leave. I left scratching and screaming, basically, so like, I was just like full fledged, like I'm going to start rebuilding my book up again. I just opened up everything up and boom, like March 14th happened. But nonetheless, prior to that, I want to say from actually 2017 on, so a little bit before I met you, even though in that time I was on stages and I was teaching and I was, utilizing social to like connect with clients and all that, I was very much mentally out of the industry. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that when I got back into hair, so I'll just back up slightly, did hair my entire life, did hair into my young adult life, decided to go back to school. Okay. So left hair, decided to go back to school, got my degree, got my art degree.
Go, Gina.
Literally coming out, I was doing hair through school. Yeah. But I was silent about it. I wasn't like promoting. That wasn't a thing. Like Instagram didn't exist. I didn't have social media or anything like that. But when I went away to school, it was actually a choice to get away from a toxic relationship dynamic. So a lot of these decisions that I was making were based on survival. I also want to highlight here that choosing to do hair was because I had been taught my whole life that it would be a guaranteed income. Okay. So that was another thing that we all know is not really very true, but it was something that I saw, like, growing up with destructive environments in my household. My mother was able to sustain and make sure that we could at least survive, by being a hairdresser. Now, granted, it was like the 80s and 90s, so it was like different time. But anyway, so doing it was never really, it was like the way when people come home and work in a pizzeria or bartend on the weekends, that was hair for me. So that's what I mean when I say it was very much like built into my system of just existing.
Yeah.
So anyway, by the time that I started to become known on social media, and I say known meaning like people started to find my shit and then, ask me how I was doing it. And I'm like, I'm just learning as I'm going. So like, thank you for being here for the ride. It was very much just, I noticed that social media was a tool that I could utilize as a window out into the world to get some type of advertising going. Now, granted, as you know, like when I first got on social, that was like 2015, 2016, like that around that time, 2014. So people weren't becoming famous online. Like that wasn't a thing yet. You had like famous people who were plugging socials, Twitter was a thing or whatever. But when people started finding me and discovering me, it was unintentional. I didn't come on social media to like become a well-known hairdresser, and to find other hairdressers to learn my way.
Yeah.
I started using social media because it was either I was going to get gas or a sandwich. So it was like, I have to pretend that I have only one opening today. And I started finessing and using it in a hustling type of way, like just utilizing social to show my work. And I would do Groupons and I would have people come in and be like, listen, they would come in for a haircut for free. I'd be like, I will let you have this service that I'm trying out for free. I'm like, it's called hair painting, blah, 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 blah. It was back in the day, granted. A lot of my hair painting knowledge and skill was informed by my sculpture and painting background in because when I went to art school. Okay. Yeah. So I was utilizing form, line, and texture in a way that I was using form, line, and texture on canvas or with metal or with whatever I was creating and constructing at the time. So it was just a way for me to say, I have to make money. I don't have the privilege to just get an internship in galleries or whatever people do when they get out of art school. I was literally graduating from school and on the phone with a new employer trying to get a job at a new salon. So there was no in between me like leaving school, coming home.
Yeah.
So anyway, this hustle is something a lot of hairdressers are used to. They understand like there's no downtime in the process. So me painting hair and creating a new way of addressing hair had more to do with the fact that I was stubbornly going to do it my way. And I was never going to touch a hair foil again. Like I was like, when I got out of college, I'm like, I'm never touching foil again in my life. I don't care what I have to do. I don't care if I have to like, only do updos forever. I didn't care, right? I was not touching foil. So being a hair painter was not because like I saw other people doing it and was like, oh, awesome. I was because I was stubborn and refusing to go back into the ways that I was taught.
And I want to take a quick pause because I saw you back. So I started watching you in 17. Okay. This wasn't, everybody can paint now. Okay. Yeah. And you do it. I think it was such a privilege to be able to see you do it live. You do it with such an artistry and just so beautifully. And I want to take a pause because I feel like when I saw you paint, okay, it was the first time for me. Okay, so this is my perspective. I was like, shit, it can be more than just doing hair, just doing a service. It's like an artistry and like this like little energy and feeling to it. Okay. Yeah. And also like she's very successful. Like she's so good at social media. So I want to throw out there. Okay. So listen up to what Gina, she's giving us lots of little hints, but keep going, Gina. Okay. So you did not want to do the foil. She was all about the hair painting. She was doing Groupon, whatever it took.
Whatever it took. I was also being, like there was other seasoned stylists around me. I was also very, very blessed to grow up around a lot of hairdressers. So I could just walk into a salon and be like, can I have a job? And they'd be like, yeah. But it was because they knew me, they knew my mom. Like I was lucky. I want to just keep saying that a lot of these reasons that I was able to be set up for creative success was because I had support systems around me. Now they were all women, right? Like they were all, women who were working in the industry who knew what it was like. Like they saw me as their baby, right? Like I was like the second generation child coming back into space. I worked in the salon. So what you guys would see was I was doing hair behind the chair in the salon that I was raised in. So I didn't have to prove anything to my boss. I just had to show up, right? She didn't care what I did. She gave me total and complete freedom. Salon Debutante in Parsippany, New Jersey. I want to shout out. Okay. Michelle, I love you. I will love you for the rest of my life. Denise, you're my bitch. Can't wait to see you on Thanksgiving. But like these are my people. Okay. So they gave me the emotional safety. That's another thing I want to say. The emotional safety to explore. So I did, and I grew and I expanded. And so what you guys were learning from me at that time was my experimentation discoveries that were based on two sentiments that I had. One, I was hyper focused on cool girl hair my whole life, like a little bit grown out, a little bit grungy, a little bit textured, a little undone. That was always like my hyper fixation when it came to hair, like where it was just like the highlights were growing out, but you couldn't really tell, is that her natural color or not? And children's hair. Those were the two avenues that I was focused on. I didn't like high chunky highlights. There wasn't a lot that I liked except for those two things. Surfer hair, like this was my thing. It was my bisexual awakening. Anyway. So like when I would see girls with this like very effortless hair, I'm like, I want to create that. And so I would see it like as if I was like taking the lightener and just like mushing it into a single strand at a time. So when I started hair painting, I was taking two concepts. One, what it means to do a double process, like using the heat of the scalp. Okay. I was using that as my foil, and texture was my other thing, because a lot of my clients are not blonde haired, blue eyed white girls. A lot of my clients are every single race, every color, every hair texture. And that mattered to me because I'm from North Jersey. So we have every kind of person you could ever imagine deserving and wanting to look hot as hell.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, it was being able to make sure that my number one goal, and this was prior to any like social media campaigning, like we're pre Insta, we're pre beauty awards. Okay. I'm just going to say that we're
Yeah.
pre beauty awards at this point. So my goal was to not see hair as hair. My goal was to see every individual strand of hair as like a 3D version of of either a sheet of paper, a rock, sandpaper, whatever. And so I was saying this type of hair is this type of texture. So if this type of hair is this type of texture, let's just say a sheet of paper, printer paper. And back in the day, so I no longer indulge in any type of substances. But back in the day, when I would, smoke a little I was like, hair is like printer paper or sandpaper. Like anyway, so I told
Like
this to
paper, paper, like
literally. And so I would say, okay, so if my lightener, if my texture of my medium, of my product needs to marry with the texture of my hair. I wasn't looking at level. Everyone's always focused how to get the blondest, how to get the blondest. I wasn't looking at that. I was looking at what is the texture of the person's hair and what does the texture of my medium need to be in order to best accompany that texture. So if it's printer paper, you can take a graphite pencil, AKA you can have something that's a little bit thicker, right? If it's sandpaper, that graphite pencil is not going to work anymore. It's going to have ridges. So you have to take like an oil stick or, something that's a pastel, something that's softer. So I would translate that to if you have hair that's a little bit coarser in texture, your lightener needs to be the slightest bit thinner. And now we're not talking about watered down, but we're talking about changing the structure of your medium so that you can get into a smooth application. And like, this is straight up. I never used higher than 10 or 20 volume ever in my life of hairdressing because I was literally afraid. So that I just never touched anything higher. I never used heat. None of my girls had under a dryer. Like, it just wasn't my thing. And it wasn't because I was some like amazing, gifted, like organic hairdresser who understood. It was just because I was scared to create chaos for my client. So I was like sitting and teeter-tottering on this line of like experimentation, but also some ethics. Yeah. Right. So, anyway, and so when I started to create that concept, that idea, I was really thinking more about painting than I was hair. And I started to notice that it worked. Like I would have a girl come in with amazing 4C hair, and she would want to be blonde and her hair would be out to here this big. And I wouldn't say, oh, you need 40 volume and a dryer to get your hair, which you would see a lot of hairdressers do. It's like they see textured hair and they'd say, this needs harshness, which is racism, but we could get into that on another podcast if you want. Something that needed a softer substance and something that needed a more accommodating substance. And so we would create these beautiful halos of gorgeous hair with very little. And also too, I was not like a product whore. Like their product knowledge classes bored me to death. Like I just have way too much ADHD for that. I need to get up and walk around. I don't want to learn about your shampoo line. It doesn't, none of it is exciting for me. None of it's all the same to me, right? Like soap is soap. I just don't have the brain to go into branding in that capacity. We'll talk about social media in a little bit. Really focus on concept, form, and realistic what can be done with giving myself limited tools, purposefully limited tools. So by the time that I was on stages, my hope was that I'd be able to teach hairdressers that they don't need everything on the market in order to do what it is that they ultimately want to do. What they have to do is have a clear and intentional plan for what it is that they care about. Now back to the healing aspect of it. By the time that I started to become known on social, now I was newly married in 2016 to the best person I've ever met in my entire life. I'm very thankful for him, but our life together, our place together that we first had, our first little apartment, was the first time I ever had no chaos in my home environment. Okay. So even though there was all these wonderful things and this creative practice and all this whatever, there was still a lot of shadowy old trauma that was not being dealt with, a lot of dynamics, familial dynamics that were not being dealt with. And then due to all of the traumatic experiences that I had pressed down, that, I mean, the things we could go on to, that would be what the trigger warning would be needed for, started to create mental health issues for me as well.
Yeah.
So I say all that to say, by the time 2017 hits and I'm getting opportunities and people who are hyper focused on fame, hyper focused on putting me on main stages, hyper focused on the branding and the culture of it.
Yeah.
I was absolutely not in that frame of mind and unprepared for what that would mean for my mental and emotional health. So I went in very innocently saying, oh, if I just get on a stage and like speak to hairdressers about concept and simplifying and pulling back, and I'll be able to do that. And then I would get there and I would be bombarded with all of the political bullshit that everyone was dealing with. I mean, people sitting in back rooms with each other, like as if it's a toxic salon, saying, oh, do you think this person's followers are real? Do you think this person, just this constant like overwhelm that I wasn't experiencing in my day-to-day life, because it didn't matter to me. And I don't say that to be like, it didn't matter, like a cool girl. I literally didn't have the mental space to even think about how big this was going to become, the hair Instagram world.
Yeah.
So when I would be on stages and I'd be teaching, there's a lot of times that you guys would come to me and say, I loved what you said. I loved what you said. And I'd be like, I was blacked out. I don't know what I said. I have no idea, because I was offline. Okay. Like there was no way. So everything I wanted to translate to people, I felt at the time that I was heavily failing in that. And it was because of the fact that I was not emotionally, spiritually, and mentally well at the time. So behind the scenes, like I would go to the salon, I would post my little hair pics, I would post my writings, and at the time, I was still very spiritually motivated. I grew up my entire life around divination. I have an uncle who's a very amazing reader and astrologer. I have lineages of people who do spiritual work. So this is also ancestral. And so these two things were always intertwined. And so it was what I grabbed at when I started needing to ground my feet back, when I needed to say, I'm not okay and I need to figure out what's going on. And that's when I started focusing on my dreams and started focusing on writing and started focusing on getting present with myself in that same exact time frame that I was also being publicly pushed outward.
Yeah.
And so at the time, I let a lot of people down. I said no to a lot of things. I would show up for things and then say, I can't do this. I was really trying to learn and gauge. Now, I then discovered not far after that I had CPTSD, that I was dealing with a lot of old trauma, that there was a lot of things going on that were affecting my ability to show up fully.
Oh no, like I just want to take a quick pause for this because I think it's so important. Okay, so Gina has been on stage. I've been on stage too. Like if you guys don't know, like I used to educate for Malibu. And for Malibu Sea, and I need to like really emphasize this. So how you're talking about how like you start getting like up on stage, you're like, oh, I don't know, I showing up and like I don't know if I can do this, but the whole worth thing is something that a lot of people don't talk about when you actually start getting attention like that.
Yes.
Because even
Yes.
for me, like, so my childhood wound, just talking a little bit about it, trigger warning, guys. So I grew up in a very abusive, before I got adopted, it was super abusive with my parents. It was pretty physical growing up around that. And I'm the oldest. And then I got adopted. This amazing man took me in, gave me this amazing life, taught me so many things. But also all the time, somebody in that household was telling me all the time, you're nothing, you're gonna end up being nothing, you're worth nothing, you're not enough, you're not enough, you're not enough, right? And so there was that little Celeste inside of me who always felt not worthy enough.
Yes.
So even though all these beautiful things come up and you get attention or publishings, like we're talking about awards, all those things that come up, you guys, like even for me, like when I've gotten publishings or worked with Pinterest, all these things, there was always this little side of me. Oh my gosh, but I'm not enough. I don't know enough. Like I need to know, should I be even doing this? Like you're like self-sabotaging yourself without knowing. So because of your little inner self not healed and you're still showing up in the world and you're still doing the things, right? For at least for me, I'm going to speak for myself. I was still doing the things, but it was like half-assed, like showing up as myself because it was like this inner battle. Like everybody sees all this success, like, oh my God, you're doing amazing. You're on
Yeah,
stage and Gina's like growing and she has over, 60,000 followers on Instagram. She's working with these huge brands, but nobody really knows this other side of what's going on in the background.
absolutely. And referencing growing up in domestic violence, growing up in situations with abusers, too much attention feels like you're not safe.
Yeah.
So, um, when I had my first moment of a bunch of people flooding and following me all at one time, I was like in an IKEA with my husband, like picking out furniture. We had nothing. We like moved into our apartment with like nope, not even a bed, right? And so I'm in there, and one of my hair painting videos is going at the time viral. We'll say at the time viral, on Behind the Chair at the time. And I just felt like, so having all of those people that you don't know all of a sudden having eyes on you, a lot of times people say, this is so amazing, this is so amazing. It was very traumatizing, actually. And it sent me into a pretty bad spell, long time spell of paranoia. Where I was constantly filtering, constantly going through if someone tried to follow me, and it was because I had trauma with stalking. So there is, and situations with stalking that continue and can continue for as long as I'll be alive, probably until that person's no longer. But so because of that, having all of these eyes, it didn't feel like a signal of success or a signal of like, oh, I just made it to the next step, or even thinking about, am I good enough for this? It was like, am I safe? Is somebody who has been known to harm me going to show up if I do an event where there's 300 people in the room, and I'm not going to be able to scan the room. So all of this put it like this: when there is a big underbelly of traumatic experiences that have never been addressed in a direct and thoughtful way, you are unaware how much that bleeds onto everything you do and everywhere you are. And so at the time, I was completely unaware of my own inability to see how offline I was, right? Mentally and emotionally. So when it comes to my approach to social media, gaining followers never mattered to me, because to me, followers are not dollars. So I have 6 planets in Capricorn. Like, unless, maybe with TikTok now and the sensations now and brands and all of that at the time, like you still had to sign contracts. You still had to go through, like, there was still hoops to jump through. There was still politics to go through. It was still like having multiple jobs. Like, it wasn't like this amazing thing that just lands in your lap. So I could give I don't even know if we can curse on here. I could give an F.
On here.
I could give a fuck about how many followers I had at the time, or whether or not people thought I was good at what I did, because if it wasn't making my husband and I be able to afford our life, it meant nothing to me. Yeah. So now when it came to social, I started utilizing it as like a window of like my more internal soul. I started using it as a space where I wanted to still connect with the individual. So if that individual was a client, fine. If it was a hairdresser across the country who was dealing with self-worth, I wanted to write something that I had felt and I had experienced that made me feel less alone when I came about it, and hoped that just one person was going to be affected. And to this day, that's still my approach. I'm not anti anything. I think everyone has I'm anti certain things politically, but I'm not anti how you approach life, right? And your creative work. I think that if you're someone who really wants to expand and be seen by a lot of people, beautiful, you should do that. It's in your calling. If you're someone who feels like it's an individual experience, beautiful, do that. It's in your calling. But I'm not someone who thinks, how can I scale this when I'm making things? And so for a lot of people, that could be seen as like anti-success, right? Yeah. Because it doesn't fall in alignment with what we now see as the natural progression of people on social media. Get known for what you do, become an educator, quote unquote, start a retreat company or whatever the fuck, become a life coach, all of a sudden be able to channel light language, be a manifestation coach. Like it's like a trail of events that happens that you see people follow like a blueprint. And for me, that never spoke to me, because what that felt like was putting on a new level of fake performance, treating it like a scalable business, when for me, my spiritual work still to this day, over 10 years later, is about connecting with the individual and allowing the person to feel like they're not alone in that space. And also too, that they don't have to pretend to be more aware than they are. My clients are not, you know, spiritual people. My clients are people from all walks of life. I have people recovering addicts. I have people who are moms of multiple kids who never did anything but look at the Bible and are now all of a sudden starting to explore their emotional needs. I have men who are learning who they are sexually for the first time in their life, in their late 40s, 50s, 60s. I have people who are of all walks of life that don't want love and light bullshit shoved down their throat. They don't want how to maximize income shoved down their throat. That's not my clientele.
Yeah.
So that was also at that time not my clientele. My clientele were working women in New York City. They don't have time to be in the salon every 5 minutes. Like, I'm not in California where people want to be super blonde. I'm in an area where people want their hair done. They either have to get their roots done every 3 weeks because they have gray coming in. Like I had very, like, my clients were not flamboyant. They were grounded, down to earth, whatever. And same with the people who I was educating when I was teaching. It was like, get rid of all that crap. Let's pretend the bowl is not even filled with lightener. Let's pretend it's filled with paint or conditioner. And now we're going to talk about how your hand, it needs to move in such a way that allows you the ability to grab less hair at a time, to be more thoughtful with your application, and to need less steps at the bowl. Literally. Yeah. So in every single instance, no matter what the medium is, it was always about simplifying, eliminating the unnecessary, and being more present with the work that actually matters.
Yeah.
So with all that being said, I could not avoid the healing aspect of that. I couldn't avoid me and be telling people to strip down to the essence. And so it became a journey of, it just became a journey of no longer being able to cover up that I needed something too. And so, yeah, when I transitioned from doing hair, again, it was by force, it was by health force, and fully giving readings. It was because I was being pressured for probably 3 or 4 years already at that time to start offering readings publicly. And I don't know if you want to talk about the stigmas around that, but I had almost 100,000 followers, which now is like nothing in comparison to a lot of these people who like get super famous in the hair industry. But I had close to 100,000 followers, and then I stopped doing hair, and I lost 40,000. Right? Like boom, 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 boom. Every day was more loss. I still lose more than I gain every single day.
And thank you for saying that, because like, even for me, like, so I've stayed at like 35, like 3,500 followers, right?
Yes.
And I became an educator. I had under 1,000 followers, you guys. That's why I tell you guys, don't focus on the freaking number. But I always like talking about healing in the beauty industry, because we're going to start talking about also the stigmas behind, healing, energy work, tarot, all that. You're talking about like showing up authentically. Like for me, I started, even though I do hair, okay, I'm a bridal hairstylist now, right? I love, this is my natural hair, okay? And she goes up in buns. I don't wear a lot of makeup. And I remember I had this big educator, and she meant it from, the goodness of her heart. She's like, Celeste, if you don't show up all the time, dolled up and put together, you are not going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So that, for me, I was like, no, but that's not who I am. I need people to see who the hell I am. And just because I look a certain way and I decide to show up naturally every day doesn't mean I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You know what I mean? So then that's what really pushed me. Like you're talking about, as we start healing, things start changing and evolving your business. You took the big leap to be like, you know what? I'm done posting hair. You've lost 40,000 followers. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But you're continuing in your journey, and you're growing, and you're like motivating and inspiring and helping so many of us change, including me. You have been a huge part of my healing journey. So how did you navigate that part? Because for me, honestly, I was like in bed crying and crying all the time. My husband's like, what the hell's going on? I'm like, this is all too much. I don't know what the fuck to do, you know? And so what was your experience as you're starting to shed the old you, as you're evolving beyond the beauty industry?
You know what? I will tell you, it was 100% supported by spirit and feeling free. So I didn't care what I was losing because, again, like I said in the beginning, it felt like too much anyway.
Yeah.
I didn't fit in anyway. Um, and so it felt like freedom. Like I felt like I was finally going to be able to be myself again. And I was going to be able to be anonymous again. That was sort of a goal. Like I would tell my husband, like, I just want to be anonymous. I just want to be able to create myself from the ground. But I was also I was having a lot of spiritual experiences as well, right? Like this went on my entire life, but like it really, really started around my Saturn return. So like right in when I was going from 27 to 30, like that era of my life, I was seeing like there would be a person pass away in my building and like I would see it before it happens. There was a lot of stuff going on that was spiritually led. And so I was a little distracted from the fact that I was losing followers and that I was transitioning because I was seeing fucking ghosts in my house. And so there was a lot of needing to regulate and make sure that I didn't fall into a state of spiritual psychosis is really what it was. And also too, I was dealing with the exposure of now people seeing, even though I was practicing and reading cards, like I was reading playing cards, like for years and years and years, like closeted. So when I started posting about tarot and people were telling me it was evil and there was like this whole, like, listen, I grew up Roman Catholic. Okay. So when you talk about my Nona's house is covered with Jesus statues. I've got a Virgin Mary right there. All
Yeah.
right. Literally sitting behind me. So when people started saying that what I was doing was demonic and even also too, I'm someone who's studied religious and cultural practices for a very long time. Like I've read the Bible as research, not as my faith base. Okay. So I'm able to be very external and not dogmatic with my approach to things. Like this is just generally how I am. Ever since I was a child, I've questioned the church. So it's never been something that has completely dictated me. However, the looming emotional state around what is evil and what isn't always existed because there's stigmas. Like I lost friends too, not just followers. People would say, I can't talk to Gina because she does that, demonic stuff. And I'm a Christian. I'm like, you're a Christian, but your church also doesn't accept you because you're gay. So there was a lot of, I felt hypocrisy in the church. I still find there to be, and I will just say, like, that's going to continue to dismantle. We're going to see a lot of dismantling of the church. But nonetheless, when it comes to spiritual practice, if you're not careful, no matter what your religion, no matter what your culture, no matter what your spiritual connection, you can use anything as a crutch
Yeah.
if you are in need of one, right? So when you start to develop a sense of deep self and an understanding of who you are at the core of you, regardless of your external belief systems or sources, it becomes less of a necessity or a security blanket to rely on those doctrines. And so the more I learned about myself and my internal experience, and when I started studying the cards, I was studying them from a philosophical Jungian lens. I was studying them from the perspective, not as a fortune teller, but as someone that needed to dissect my internal shadows, the things that I was experiencing and going through that were expected it to be a cathartic experience for me to discover. So, I was, and when I would read for people, they would come saying, is my boyfriend cheating on me? And I'd be like, when are we going to address the conversation about the relationship between you and your father? So it would turn into a deeper conversation. So a lot of the shadows get driven up from a place that's much deeper than the initial conversation. So the fears that exist when it comes to a divinary practices like tarot and anything, I will say two things. Every prophet in every book was a heretic of their time. So what I mean by that is even Jesus was crucified. Okay. No matter what your belief systems are, I don't believe in a singular dogma. I find that to be very culturally unaware and westernized and colonial to think that there's a singular way of looking at divinity as a whole. I also know because of deep study that the types of God or gods that countries and places in the world will have will be very based on their infrastructure. So if you have an imperial nation, you'll have a singular god. If you have a nation that's based on trade, you'll have many gods. It's anthropological as well. So it's not just, so because I'm very aware of that, I'm able to drive that up. I don't feel threatened by people who find what I do to be evil or, like off the beaten path, because I know that for them, maintaining their belief system is a security for themselves, is a way for them to feel safe. And once you start dissecting your belief systems, it feels unsafe. It's the same way that once you realize that nobody's coming to save you in the manifestation process and, creating magic. I mean, I do candle magic. There's plenty of things I do nobody sees, right? There's been a lot of things that I've manifested due to the things that I've done. But once I started to recognize the little seed of, am I doing this because I want something outside of myself to save me? Once I started to dissect abandonment wounds, how that's directly correlated to being left as a child by a parent, how that's directly correlated to feeling unsafe in childhood. Once I started to relate and discover through my divinary practice and writing and meditation and everything, honestly, running on the treadmill brought me more revelations than meditating ever will. Okay. So being present in my body.
Yeah.
But once I started to recognize that nobody's coming to save me, and I got over the grief of that, it led me to a place of internal power, which said, if nobody's coming to save me, that means I'm here to save me. Yeah. Right. And so to a degree that reintegrated my relationship with God, source, divinity as part of every cell of me. And so we say things like, and just philosophically, we say in religions that God is omnipresent. He's everywhere. It's everywhere, whatever you want to say. So then why not within you? Is there barriers or plexiglass between your cells and the rest of the world where God exists? So to me, God is within all of us. Yeah. The energy of God, the energy of, and I'm using the word God because of the context.
Yeah.
What I mean is that your power and your energetic presence is just as valuable as anyone or anything else's. And so two things happened. I started to see that I had more agency over my healing process than I originally thought I did. I didn't need a lot outside of myself. Again, simplifying. I didn't get into the ayahuasca ceremonies and the retreats. I didn't do any of that shit because to me it was, I would do a few because I had to, for administrative purposes, because I also ran healing center.
Yeah, he did.
But I didn't identify with that being my answer. And so I started to discover that the answers were simply to create, to be, to create, to become. Anyway, that's, I could go on and on forever. But because of that, when I lost a lot,
yeah,
I recognized it was because I was recalibrating and I was coming to a place of discovering a more true essence of myself that didn't need a crutch or a security blanket. Just like social media followers can be a security blanket, so can religion.
Yeah. And I love how you touch on like so for me, like with everything is like neutrality, right? So I come from Mayan descent. Mm-hmm. So I grew up with like being Catholic, but then also my grandma would have like, it's a special kind of palo santo. Mm-hmm. And they would do like a cleansing with certain leaves and like water cleansing and all this stuff. And then she taught that to my mom. So my mom would do that to us as well, right? So for me growing up, and I'm so grateful for that, because for me it was the neutrality. It wasn't this or that. It was, they were both intertwined together. And even my grandma, who was, Mayan descent, and she had her own dialect and practices, and she still wore like her original like clothing from her, actual tribe that she was part of. She went to church every freaking Sunday. She went to mass and she practiced. And so it was for me, like, I think I'm so grateful for that because it really taught me just in life and in general, like there is a neutrality of things. It's not this or that. And like you're saying, like religion can be bad if you become very like crazy and fanatical about it, right? Mm-hmm. Just like healing can also be bad if you're like really fanatical about things. So it's that whole like neutrality of like what we do. Mm-hmm. And just with like going back to like, okay, social media. So I love how you say like everything can be a crutch, right? Like our social media followers, like we lose them. Oh my gosh. And that took so long for me to learn. And that's why honestly, like my goal in life is not to grow my social media following.
Mm-hmm.
I've been very successful in my own way. I live the life that I love right now without hundreds and thousands of freaking followers. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not important. Like to me, it's not. But just like with like social media and stuff, what are some precautions that we can take, especially right now with like love and light and be positive, bitch? Like I suffer from anxiety, okay? Like, and now I'm on medication, like on hormones to control it, which has helped a lot. I can't be love and light all the time, you guys. Like, no, no, no. And have you ever had like a negative experience with all this? And what are some things that people can really look into? Because even for me, when I decided to become Reiki certified, I am not going to be doing healing. You and I have talked about this
Mm-hmm.
because there's so much responsibility that has to go alongside with all this healing and also doing your inner child, like, you know, therapy and shadow work. I literally had a therapist, a licensed trauma response therapist that I was meeting with once a week as I was doing this inner child navigation and shadow work within myself that nobody knew about, right?
Yes.
So I would love to talk a little bit more about that because just for me, just in the scope of things and just like what you're talking right now, and this is not to throw shade at anybody, this is not to label anybody. I'm just saying there's a lot of this huge misconception that anybody can be Reiki certified, anybody can do the work and guide you through it. So I would love your take on this too.
So I'm going to come at it from from the mindset of someone who mentors a lot of healers and readers. And it comes back to what we were just discussing actually with religion, is similar to like when we're talking about the love and light. People often are unintentionally causing more harm than good because something that they've learned helped them in that exact moment. So just thinking positive might have helped that person to avoid the deeper emotions long enough to get through their day. And so, because they were able to utilize that practice to get through today, tomorrow, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, whatever, now they're promoting that practice. And it's up to the individual who's that. I always feel like there's two responsibilities with experiences. And I would say this too, like a lot of times people would come into the healing center to come get readings and talk about how they had just been scammed by a local psychic who said that they had a curse on them and that they needed to pay thousands of dollars. It was this whole thing. Similarly, online, not just with the love and light, but also too with a lot of people pretending to be healers, making fake pages, doing scammers, whatever. I feel that there needs to be a more emphasized responsibility on the recipient as well, the adult recipient as well.
Yes.
And so what I feel, and I used to say, good, I'm glad you got scammed because didn't you learn something? Not to be fucking stupid and not to walk into a place like with that level of a vulnerable expectation that someone outside of you has more answers for you than you do in your lived experience. And so and people would look at me like, oh my God, stunned because I'm pretty harsh with it. But I would say, buckle up, baby. If you start looking to another person, place, thing, entity, deity, anything for the answer, you're going to be led into a tunnel of darkness. And what I mean by that is confusion, dysfunction, extremism. Okay. And so at all times, the way to navigate is to remind yourself that everything you see at all times from every single person is simply a perspective. And whether that triggers something in you or not is going to be the mirror that you use to launch into the next era of your healing. So I'm pretty cold blooded with that. Like if someone comes to me crying that they got scammed by a healer, I'm like, babe, did you read the ethics? Oh, there wasn't any. You shouldn't have booked with them. So for me, it's what are the people's systems? Do they seem like they're legitimate? But then as a mentor of a lot of healers, I can tell when someone is at the beginning of their professional healing career, as opposed to when someone is very far in. So the beginning, there's a lot of grabbiness for different modalities. Oh, a Reiki healer, a quantum healer, a manifestation coach. Like there's a lot of title grabbing. I'm a ceremonial leader. I'm a this, I'm a that. Like there's a lot of title grabbing. And so that tends to happen within the first like 1 to 5 years of someone's spiritual career. Some people get stuck there because they find easy financial success. But for the most part, you will not find that in healing and modalities and spaces. And so a lot of these, what I would always say is if you're trying to navigate whether or not you should believe in someone's validity or their words of advice, is to ask yourself whether or not you are expecting them to solve your problems more than you're solving your problems. Okay. So every single person is a teacher. There's not a single person in this entire world who's doing it wrong. Okay. They might be doing it in a way you wouldn't or unethically. And then that's for different state boards to regulate, not me. But there, for the most part, it's up to the individual to make a discerning decision. And I am not someone who will ever think that my clients or the people who I heal or help are below me emotionally and mentally. What I say is, come on, babe, buck up. Like it's time for you to be a little bit more conscious and discerning in what it is. And if you're not ready to listen to those voices, it's up to you to unfollow those voices, maybe to mute those voices, to give yourself space from those voices. It's always up to you. So radical responsibility is the way to navigate those spaces and those types of people, I would say.
Yeah, and I want to also like emphasize this. So I got tarot readings with Gina, and I also work with my social media changes with Gina too. Okay. Yeah. And this is one of the things that I love about you and about working with you, and that I really want to share with this about our own responsibility. Mm-hmm. So you were, she's very kind about it, but she is like, you need to answer your own questions. Like, I'm not going to give you the answers. Here's like a little glimpse, but you need to figure it out. And at first I would be so pissed off. I was like, what the hell? I asked you a question, girl. I want an answer. And then, and this is the whole point of all this, all the answers that we seek for, all the success, what's next, what should I do, what I shouldn't do in my life, it's all within us. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest lessons that for me, that socially that I learned, it was having a fucking house. So we all hear it. I remember when I was little, your goal in life, get a fucking house, buy a fucking house, buy a fucking house, right? So we buy a fucking house, and guess what? It's still you. Mm-hmm. Nothing changed. I have peace in my house because of me. It's still calm and quiet because of me. Nothing changed because of me. But if I would have expected the fucking house, and honestly, it wasn't slap in the face, because for me, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have more peace. It's gonna be like this new level. No, bitch, like it's the same fucking shit. Like it really emphasized that all the answers and everything that we truly seek for, the answers of what's next and how we can bring happiness and peace into our life, it's all within us. And I really love how you also touched about how you lost also friends. I've lost family. There's been so much shedding, you guys. And it's really, I feel like people don't talk about this enough. Like when you go to a new level, it's not that you think you're better than anybody else. Like you were talking about, we can learn from everybody. I learned from kids. I learned from my own kids, my little 5-year-old, from people all the time, from strangers. It's that you know a new way of living. And sometimes, like you were talking about the mirrors, and sometimes people don't like that mirror. Like when somebody triggers me now, it's not like, oh, they triggered me. It's like, oh, wait. They are reflecting something about myself that I don't like. So I need to take that and really do my own work. And for me, it's just writing. I don't journal. I just write shit down, and then I read it and I'm like, oh, there's my answer. So it just really need to do their own work of like, okay, it's not that person. They're not doing nothing bad. They're not triggering me. They're reflecting something back about me that I need to work on.
Yes. And people are going to come to their conclusions about you the same way that we come to conclusions about others. People come to conclusions about us. Yeah. Every person that I work with or help or even just talk to online, if I write something, I am always assuming that they are at the same mental and emotional level as me. I am never assuming they're below me. I'm never assuming that I know better than them. Now, there are people who will take that and say she thinks she's better than us, right? There's always going to be that person. And so then when it comes to even the mentorship, like how you were talking about, like asking your own questions, for me, I don't want anyone to rely on me as a necessity in their life or business for long periods of time. I'm even like this when it comes to readings. Like if I have someone who comes to me for a specific question and then a couple weeks later comes to me, tries to come to me again for that same question, I give them one time to be told off with me after. And I will say, I said what I said. And I said what I said 2 weeks ago, and do not book another reading for another 3 months. And sometimes people see that as like very rigid. But the reason is because I need you to recognize that there's growth that happens in between the questions.
Yeah.
And my goal is always to give people agency and empowerment in their things. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to help guide and give reference and make sure that they have, you know, what they need, but I need to also be aware that there's a couple different types of, now we're going to talk about like spiritual guides, spiritual leaders.
Yeah.
You have a lot of people who expect and need you to rely on them for the answers in the way. Okay.
Yeah.
We could look at someone like Teal Swan as a good example. If people don't know who that is, they should go look up The Fall of Teal Swan. Any cult leader you need to be looking up is really what I want to say. I'm hyper aware at all times that if someone thinks I have answers that they don't, that they could start to become dependent on me. Because there's a lot of things I have access to emotionally, spiritually, mentally that I had to discover on my own. It's not that I want people to feel like they're alone in the process, but if I start to recognize a dependence, I adjust, I shift. Because it is one of my most profound and important ethics that I don't become a replacement for someone's dogma. So, and that has to do with mentorship, has to do with teaching, has to do with giving readings.
And what about, okay, so, and I want to also say something to what you're saying, Gina. Even my own therapist, you guys, okay, so she's a licensed therapist. She went to school, degrees, the whole thing, okay, especially for being trauma-informed therapist, you have to do extra shit, okay? Mm-hmm. Even for her, it's like, it was never to be with her forever. Mm-hmm. It's through periods and cycles. And after 2.5 years, we ended it. And then she's no longer practicing anymore. So she moved on with her life too. But I was ready to go. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like someone who helps you. She never gave me the fucking answers. I mean, here, a little look into therapy. She never gave me the fucking answers. She was just there to kind of guide me and kind of have open-ended questions for me from what I was saying to find the own fucking answers from within me.
Yes.
You know?
That's exactly it.
And that's exactly like what you're talking about. Like it's not to solve everybody's problems because it all has to come within us. But if somebody doesn't understand dogma, what do you mean by dogma? What does that mean?
So dogma is, there's two ways you could put it. Dogma is rigid belief. Rigid belief. So that could be a religious belief, a rigid religious belief, a rigid political belief, a rigid life belief, concepts of life. So when I say dogma, I mean, let's just say you come from, like you grew up in a very high control religious group, like a Bible Belt Christian, let's just say. And I mean, leaving that was seen as demonic in itself. Mm-hmm. And then now you start coming to me to start healing your relationship with your spiritual self. It's important to me that part of the work is you learning agency and trust in yourself. And so I don't want you to take that extremist view and then expect me to replace that extremist view. And so there will be space left. Part of the work that I believe in is space being left between things. And it's because in that space is where you start to learn you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Now, I do believe this is where like the trauma-informed therapy and all that comes into play. It's why there's different people for different places. I don't believe that I am the end all be all. I have lists and recommendations of therapists that I send people to. I have friends in therapy. I have friends in different healing modalities, and I refer out depending on what I feel. That's other thing. Same with hairdressers. A lot of people got very egotistical and thought they could do everything. And then that's where the crash and burn came from. It is important to understand that you are more of an ethical professional when you know how to refer out to others. Okay. So I believe in that same concept in healing and spiritual work. And so I do think that there's some people that need less space. Like there's some people that I've had instances where people came to me because they wanted to start shadow work, but it was very clear to me that they were still living the loop of their traumatic experiences. And so they needed a more loving and organized approach to simplistic steps forward. And I would straight up say, I don't think you're ready for that process yet. And this is why. And we would go through what I do think that they need to address first. Like I'm good about shutting the door on things I notice people are not ready for. Um,
and, and
now,
and it kind of looks like it sounds actually it is like being a beauty pro, like honestly,
yeah.
like even with hairstyling, even with brides, you guys, I'll be like, okay, look at my page. I have a separate page, not my regular page. Look at that page. If that vibe and that styles you, book me. If not, so much love to you. I'm not the right person for you. You need to find somebody that their page looks to what you want. And if that's
Mm-hmm.
not me, like no hard feelings. Like don't book me, please. Like
That's the reason why I like working in spaces with multiple. Like I was never a sweet person
yeah.
when it came to hair because I enjoy being around a ton of different powerhouses who are good at different things. Like I don't need someone to um make me feel good because they're on the same level as me, right? Like, a lot of times you'll see like, oh, you can't have stars at the show in your hair salon because like whatever. I love it. Like I want to be around a ton of different powerhouses. Like if I don't know how to do that type of haircut,
Yeah.
this is so and so, they're banging at this, look at their work, like this is who you need to book with. Then I call them over, I say, would you do a consultation with my client? Maybe you're like, I think too, there's a lot of rigid control that exists in every avenue of service-based business because service-based business is based on get a client, get a dollar, get a client, get a dollar. And so when we see a client walk away, we think a dollar walks away instead of creating space for a more refined book or a more refined clientele that makes more sense to you. And then people who tend to trust you. And so now I'm able to be paid for an hour of basic consulting. Sometimes that leads me literally consulting with a list of other people who I think they need to go to.
Yeah.
And then those people book for me again to tell them a new list of people to go to. So, and it's because you're trying to gain reputation and trust. To me, everything that you do is based on showing up in the way that is most authentic to you and not in a trademark authentic, but realistically, who are you? If you're someone who's very competitive and still feeling very self-conscious and still living in the state of lack, what that tells me is that you need more. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means that maybe right now you shouldn't be positioning yourself in the same room with heavy hitters. You should be positioning yourself in the same room with people who are still learning. And that's okay, Just a tiny round out, because of course I could go on a tangent all day. Back to that period of loss and rejuvenation.
Yeah.
It's important to recognize that you usually feel unsafe in times of transition because of your ego. Okay. Your ego telling you, I was this, I had this. Mm-hmm. What are people thinking about me from the outside? Mm-hmm. Okay. When you look into the deeper truth that all of this is bullshit, that everything is made up, that we've created these systems and structures through time to keep us safe in a conventional way so that we can operate in whatever way has been decided prior, not just social media, everything. You realize that you've been safe the whole time. And it's just what you want to be seen as is the thing getting in the way of your growth. So a lot of times people come to me in the beginning wanting me to give them the golden ticket to be seen as something. Mm-hmm. And what I do is I force them to shed away everything that's not them.
Yeah.
And so sometimes what people are left with is a need to take a break or a need to reflect on what they want to do this for in the first place.
Yeah.
Like we've had those experiences ourselves here in this dynamic.
Yeah.
And that happens more often than you think. Sometimes when you're in it, you think it's just me. It's just me. It's not. It's so many people. It's all of us. Like we get caught up on what makes us look good a lot. And we could blame social media for that, but we are social media.
Yeah.
So we need to blame ourselves. Anyway,
Yeah, so it's just like taking accountability, and like you're talking about, like we've been talking through this whole episode. It's how healing has changed even with your business, like how you have evolved to where you are today. And for all of us, like doing our own work and dealing with our own lives, like I think it's so important as we're talking about healing and just doing the work and the shadow work and therapy and all this stuff. Like as beauty professionals and practitioners, doing beauty services, something so intimate, touching people's hair, being all over their face,
Mm-hmm.
touching their neck, décolleté, like, waxing. I think it's so important that we also remember like the power that we hold within our hands to ask for permission. And then we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about this as we're getting ready to wrap up the episode. We're talking this in the beginning before we start recording, how many people think, oh, Celeste is not confident because she's asking, can I touch your hair? Are you tender headed? All this stuff, right? And for me, it's because sometimes there's just trauma even within our own hair. Do you know how many times I've heard, oh, it's okay, you can yank as hard as you want because my mom used to pull it so hard it would make me cry, so now I'm used to it.
Mm-hmm.
No, 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 we don't
Mm-hmm.
yank it. I don't yank in my chair.
It's true. I'm telling you, giving people permission to decide yes or no,
Yeah.
um, I think that that's a part of our job. Um, not just in healing, but like you said, in hair, in any beauty. And I would say even like massage and facials are a good place to describe it. Because for me, for a long time, I had never, ever, ever gone to go get a facial or a massage because I was afraid to be alone in a room with my eyes closed with someone. And so it took a lot to be able to navigate that fear.
Yeah.
Um, and with Reiki, it's even more so. I've had to fire practitioners who use like deep trauma in insidious ways to get people to trust them more. Like, oh, I can see your deepest traumas. Like, people are nuts out here. Okay.
Yeah.
So they really are. And so when you are someone who creates a space that, and we can say safe space, but where you're putting agency back in the hands of your client saying, is this okay? Like, are you comfortable with this? It can be jarring for some because they think like, wait, I get to decide. And sometimes you have to, navigate that too, where it's like some people don't want to have to decide, but it's nice for someone to at least have the tiniest impact left on them, that they weren't being forced into something that day, that it was all about them for that day.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that, like I said, talking about the thing without talking about the thing in the beginning, I think when you do these little practices of allowing people to feel safe, allowing people to have agency over their bodily autonomy, what you're doing is helping them heal past experiences without even needing to talk about them. That's what you're doing. And so I find that to be very important. I also think that transparency is important. Like when we talk about hair and healing, one of the first things that people have to do before they could book a reading with me is, I am not a replacement for your doctor. I'm not a replacement for your lawyer. I'm not a replacement for your financial advisor. Do you understand me? Yes or no? And they have to sign the checkbox, the dotted line. There's an ethics code they have to follow with policies that are not just, if you don't show up, I take all your money. It's like, you have to understand that I am only capable of this much in this amount of time. Are you comfortable with understanding that? Do you understand that this is not what you're going to receive today? Do you understand that this might be the scope of what you will? And so I think that in hairdressing too, like what needed to happen was a recognition that it doesn't always have to be about proving yourself all the time. It can sometimes just be about being honest and allowing that to be enough space. And then going back to the middle part, the needing to release all the things. A lot of times there's a fear that we have to be more than we are yet, right? I have to do this. This person sat down and they want to get a double process and they want to be white blonde, and now I'm going to ruin their hair. And like 3 hours later, it's going to be a traumatizing situation and like whatever, because you were afraid to say, I'm not there yet. Yeah. I'm not capable of this yet. I need time yet. I'm not the right person for you yet. A lot of times we get caught up. And speaking of consent, it is actually going against someone else's consent to pretend that you can do something that you can't. And so with what you're saying, the depths of it, yes, saying, can I touch you? Is this enough pressure? Is this good? To me, that's just good care. That's quality care. That means I care about the person sitting with me. And I understand that the experience is a big proponent to this, why I'm being paid in the first place. Um, it's like you don't go to a hotel and they throw your shit in a room and say, shut the door. Like,
No.
like we have to be held to a certain caliber and standard. That should be standard. But when it comes to being real about what you can and cannot do, if you're not real about that, you're actually overstepping someone's ability to consent to a service. And that is actually much deeper and darker than anything that we do. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, I
it
think that
is.
when it comes to consent, hairdressers need to be honest about, every service provider needs to be honest about when our ego is creating harm for our client.
Yeah, and it's so true. Like it's the importance of like even with healing, like it helped me to put those boundaries, right? Even my contracts, like you're talking about all these things. Like my contract, it is 3 pages. Okay, if people want to book me for bridal, but it's very transparent. I'm like, I cannot duplicate the inspiration picture.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot yell and disrespect me. Like there is a, 2 strikes and I'm out, like rule in there. And like I was talking about in the episode, I tell people, go look at my page. If that fits your vibe,
Mm-hmm.
I'm for you. If not, I am not for you. Let's, like love you. Like we'll find, the right person for you. And I hire, and healing myself has also helped me to hire people who are stronger than me. Like the
Mm-hmm.
person who assists me to do weddings, she's amazing. She's been in the industry for like 22 years. And she's a badass fucking like hairstylist too. She is. She does beautiful shit. Like shit. I'm like, oh my God. And we learn from each other. And it's such a beautiful collective energy. I pay her well, I take care of her and everything. It's not like, oh my God, she's above me. It's like, oh my God, I have this superpower next to me. The girls
Mm-hmm.
that do makeup, they're each strong in their own realms, do things I can't fucking do in my own fucking eyes, and it's not, they don't belong to me. Even all three of them, I've told them, when you guys are ready to go on your own, like, I love you, like, just let me know. And like, and they're booking their own shit. Like, I feel like once you start healing, it starts trickling to your business, to your life, to understand like what you're saying. You hold the power.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the way you start treating people, the way you start running your business, it all trickles into that too.
100%. It's really actually miraculous. That's where the miracle of it is. That's where the real manifestation energy is. Um, there's no like quick way, there's no little secret, there's no little tricks, it's really like once you start to become healthy, you react healthy, you communicate healthy, you work with your people in a healthier way, you're able to accept a little bit more, your bandwidth grows. And maybe it shrinks in some ways. Maybe you stop putting up with certain bullshit if you're a people pleaser or whatever. Like but you learn ultimately how to communicate from a place of being online, which is really, like where you finally come to after going through the process of healing.
Yeah.
And there's no end.
No, it's ever going. I think that's the most important part that I really wanted to like emphasize with this. Like even for me, and you can share your experience. For me, it's like I will be healing and trying to just learn more about myself as I get older for the rest of my life. Like and I'm not a broken thing where I'm not here to fix myself. I'm just here to better understand myself and try to be a better human so I can have a happier life for myself and the people around me and my children around me. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's just, that's the journey I'm on.
Yes. For me this year, the number one revelation that I came to was a lot of show me, don't tell me, right? So putting down as many books, putting down putting down more than I pick up and creating from an authentic place. I mean, that's where the deck started to manifest from, is create every single day. Do not ruminate, do not get caught up, create. And so that became my law this year. And it has transformed my life. And like we were talking about having access to opportunities and your business changes. I mean, I now say yes to things that I would have said no to a couple years ago due to fear, ego, rigidity, whatever. And I say no to things that I would have said yes to. Like it's there's a lot that has shifted and changed, and it's based on like when you are in a place of recognizing your chapter that you're in. Like for me, this is about creation. That comes first. I don't do anything if it's going to get away in the way of me creating my work. Um, I prioritize that above everything, above money, above, we could have a whole episode on that, on what it means to really be a creator.
Yes,
Uh,
we should do that one
you
next.
know, as opposed to just a profiter,
Yeah.
because they're very different things. Um, and so this year, like I took myself through a journey of like I quit my full-time job last year. There's a whole everything. The transitions have been huge, but um I took myself on a journey of looking at the relics of other artists, people who have created things for centuries, and looking at their lifestyle. Like a lot of them were homeless or living in literal like abandoned buildings together and making shit. And their stuff's in museums. And I had to come to this conclusion of like, what am I willing to get rid of, shed, and sacrifice for the work? Like, what am I willing to let go of for the work? And so that has been my most recent, we could put it in quotes, spiritual or chapter that I'm in, is taking more responsibility for what I'm willing to sacrifice to create the things that are meant to come out of me, while I'm here.
I love that, Gina. Gina, you have been freaking amazing. I could talk to you for hours and hours, but we have to be mindful of Gina's time too. So, what are your final words, and where can we find you? Where can people follow you? I already follow you, girl. I follow you, but where can they find you?
So on Instagram, I'm just at Gina.Devine on Instagram. And you can book with me for mentorship or tarot, or even just find my blog where I write. A lot of it is a mix between the creative, the spiritual. So it's like a mix between like artistry and spirituality, at soulcentrictarot.com. So I do offer also social media services, but I'm like still kind of like it's like you got to know me, get in the back door kind of policy for that. So, and that's being refined. So like I help people with their websites and their presence and all that, but that's sort of like the back end. For the most part, what I'm most focused on is the spiritual work. So, yeah, you could find me at Gina Devine on Instagram and soulcentrictarot.com.
Yeah. So I'll put all that in the show notes for the podcast. But thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your time with us. And I'm so excited to share this with everybody. And overall, thank you so much for being part of my healing journey. Just started from, meeting you as an educator, to the tarot, to now, like guiding through my whole social media changes. And just every day when I able to like go on Instagram and I see a post of yours, it just lightens me and brings so much joy to my life. So thank you for just being you.
Oh, and it's mutual. I got you, girl. I'm here. I'm here when you need me. That's how I always tell you. When you need me, I'm here. Um, you're a light in my life. I get excited whenever we run into each other. You've been a support for me in ways that maybe you didn't even know at many times. And so thank you. Thank you for inviting me on your little space.